Hey, welcome to the show. It's Wednesday, the 18th of August, 2021. And these are a bunch of stories that I think you might find interesting, or I found interesting. And they're basically a bunch of stories from last week that don't include the three main things that everybody's been talking about in the news. So, but before we get to that, first up, Josh Frydenberg finally took my advice. Victory is mine! You see, this has been shitting me all year. Look at this. Look there and there. Also there. It's like, buddy, your neck. And then clearly by July, he was like, oh yes. Oh yeah, the trees. Ooh.
You know exactly
Ooh.
Nurofen knows this. That's why it's designed to work with your body.
This guy gets it. And then finally Frydenberg was like, somebody get me some fucking books or something. And I was like, surely, if anybody can throw money around, it's this man. But maybe I thought it's just indecision. Not a great quality to have in a politician, but you know, as they say, behind every great man is a great office manager. So I decided to give him some advice. And then last Thursday, this. I couldn't believe it on my feed. And even better, it would seem that I actually just missed that he had actually taken my advice within 2 hours of me posting that. Anyway, on to the first story, which I know every woman in Australia probably already knows about, and is probably thinking, what does this white man have to say about this? I bet it won't annoy anybody. At the back end of last week, the current Miss Universe Australia, Maria Thatill, she went on an all-out assault against male toxic masculinity. She was actually invited to a group chat from some boys from two elite high schools in Melbourne. The contents of which was a lot of sexist language, largely to the ends of sexually objectifying women. Now, a lot of her comments are made through Instagram stories and they're still continuing, but she told Seven that while these conversations have been made privately, they often bleed into the outside world and eventually later on down the track into power where they cause real harm.
When misogyny and sexism thrives in the shadows, that's where we start to tolerate disrespect towards women, and then it bleeds into society.
Since that interview, she's been in contact with the two schools involved, and on Instagram, she then reflected on her own experiences in terms of this.
The boys in this chat, they're about 19 years old. 10 years ago, I was just coming out of high school, so I was about their age. And I can tell you now that the boys that I went to high school, a lot of them were exactly the same. Where women were talked about like they were nothing more than sexual objects who existed for the sick satisfaction of perverts like this.
Which then followed what she said were hundreds of girls coming forth with similar stories. One girl talking about a similar chat in her school where boys would rate the girls based on their appearances. And there are heaps of others. Even some men chimed in, which is always a bit, wait, isn't that what you're doing, Ryan? And really, I have nothing to say that hasn't already been said, but I can only really speak to my own opinion. And that is that I agree that her whole thesis is that education is the key here. It's not about punishing these boys. I myself graduated from an all-boys high school in 2008, and sure, we talked about sexual assault statistics and domestic violence, but that's really it. Which means that at 17, I was spewed out into the world, and for the next 7 or 8 years, I was constantly pressing on the walls of my own bubble. Each time a woman would lament to me that they were too scared to walk to their car or catch a train at night, that they would text friends addresses for dates, or that they have a code word that you give to bartenders so the bartender knows to call security in like a clandestine fashion, I was like, what? Huh? It's not as though that I didn't believe that there was rape, misogyny, and toxicity in the world, but I was more surprised by the day-to-day of it all. Now, age 25 was a bit of a turning point for me, but I still to this day forget. And men often do forget because it's not shoved in our faces every day. We're in our own bubble.
I've been saying this for decades. We don't feel safe because we're not respected, because of the way that we are perceived, and because of the lack of attention.
This sentiment of education was reflected in Melbourne High's response from yesterday, and that was to reform personal development and collaborate with mental health organisations to foster better ideas of masculinity. So Maria does need to call this shit out. These are small lessons. They remind you to poke at the walls of your own bubble. Times like last week which is fertile ground for self-reflection, but unfortunately, it's easy to ignore, especially if a man isn't really interested in what's outside of his bubble, or perhaps is just innocently naive and unaware. So, I don't really have an answer for that, but there are people who are smarter than me, educators alike, who do. So I will pop a link down below for those people and, drop a comment down below. And then last Tuesday, hackers managed to pull off one of the biggest cryptocurrency heists. 613 million US was taken from the Poly network, a digital peer-to-peer transaction service for digital coin. But then by Thursday morning, 260 million US of that was returned. It didn't stop there, because by night, 342 million of that had been returned. And then finally, by the next day, only 33 million remained to be returned. But that's only because the maker of the coin had frozen it. Why were they returning this money? Well, the hacker said, I just want to get this quote right, hang on. "I'm not very interested in money." This was in a strange self-interview that the hacker sent that nobody really asked for. In fact, the hacker doesn't care about money so much that they even asked for donations in that self-interview. And as of posting this, they've received around 16,000 US dollars since then. Who would send this person money? They have money. At the time, I love this, and I love any troll that involves $500,000 because not many of them do involve that much money. But this isn't that unheard of in the hacker community. These people are called white hats, as this person purports to be, and what they do is that they highlight vulnerabilities in the security system, and then they give the money back. But as experts have pointed out, this generally happens in smaller dollar amounts, so this is unusual. But there are other theories about why this money is dribbling back. The most immediate one that comes to mind is because the Poly network asked nicely. There is, however, a more plausible theory to this, and it's one that we seem to be sticking to since last week, and it's that they're dirty, dirty thieves. And the reason they gave the money back was just because they had trouble getting rid of it and converting it to cash. Co-founder of Elliptics, a crypto safety company, argued that even if you can steal crypto assets, laundering them and cashing out is extremely difficult due to the transparency of this sort of currency. I'm not going to give you an IT lesson on what blockchain is, I'll link a vid below, but this opinion was mirrored by other security companies, which makes sense because ultimately, Elliptics seek to make this money as unusable as possible by allowing its clients to screen their transactions and their wallets for any money that may have been exposed to this hack, even if it was indirect. Understandably, Poly was on a similar mission too. They blacklisted any tokens that were associated with that money. They published the digital addresses that the money went to. And then two quick ones. In a saga which has gone on for 3 weeks too long, DaBaby cancelled his own apology after being cancelled. That was hard to get through. If you haven't been following DaBaby, late last month received a lot of backlash for saying this.
"Fellas, if you ain't sucking nigga dick in the parking lot, put your cell phone like
Let's be real about this shit."
And this.
"You didn't show up today with HIV, AIDS, any of them deadly sexually transmitted diseases that'll make you die in 2-3 weeks, put a cell phone like that."
In a segment I'm gonna call "What Did You Think He Thought?" He was subsequently dropped from other festivals, and Boohoo ended their clothing partnership with him, all the while doubling down on Twitter. But then 20 minutes later, apologized on Twitter, and then posted that on Instagram. Wait, let's just try that again. And on Instagram. Yeah, right, he really did delete it. And then the second quick one, I wouldn't normally do a COVID story, but this is hardly a COVID story, and this was just too good to pass up. One of the leading theories, if you don't know, is that the pandemic had its origin movie in bats in China. We know this. Swiss biologist Wilson Edwards revealed to several Chinese newspapers that there had been enormous pressure and even intimidation from the US side, as well as certain media outlets, to agree with this story in the publishing of a World Health Organization paper in March. To which the Swiss embassy there was like, who the fuck is Wilson Edwards? Putting a call out on Twitter saying, "If you exist, we would like to meet you." And then they followed that up with 3 very compelling points. That there are literally no registered Wilson Edwardses in Switzerland. He has not been cited in any biology academic articles. And the Facebook account he was quoted from was only created last month, with that post being the only one, which, you know, they assured that his 3 friends probably enjoyed, and they quoted as saying, "It was not open for social networking purposes." And Wilson Edwards? That just sounds like the name that a lazy Chinese person thinks that all white people have. Like if the tables were reversed and a lazy white person thinks that somebody from the Philippines is called Wang Ting or something racist like that. I mean, Wilson Edwards, it's a white name. It's just the wrong white. And then let's talk about the Free Latifa movement. It's over, people. We found her. It's been a painful 3 years for this movement of, I don't know, paying for a domain name GoDaddy registration. Anyway, she's free. If you don't know what this is about, I'll link a very definitive Washington Post article below, as well as a BBC video, which I don't plan to remix. But you know, I'm gonna give you the cliff notes now, you know me. 35-year-old Princess Latifa is one of 25 offspring of Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, better known as the poet of You Lived, You Died, Loving Father, and the ruler of DaBaby. For a long time, she was the envy of the wealth hungry until, of course, February 2018, when she staged an escape from her father by sailing across the Arabian Sea. That was until a week later, still at sea, Emirati soldiers stormed the boat and arrested her in early March. She then revealed to the world, in a what I would call an "if you're watching this, I'm dead" video, that under her father, it's a nightmare. Held captive in a guarded villa, she sent text messages and videos to friends on a smuggled-in phone until she stopped replying last year. And this wasn't her first rodeo either. When she was 16, she naively tried to hop the border until she was arrested and held in a room where she was beaten, tortured, and made to believe she was gonna die. Anyway, that brings us to May of this year, and I am angling toward a point here where things got a little strange. She suddenly appeared in a photo on an Instagram post by her friend Sinead Taylor, and the media were like, huh? And then the Free Latifa campaign were like, we can't comment, soz. And can I just point out as a side note that the director of this campaign is her friend Tina Yao Houanen, the one who was on the boat with her in the Arabian Sea. And then after that, a law firm claiming to be Latifa's representation began sending letters demanding that Latifa's friends and members of the advocacy campaign Free Latifa stop talking about her in the media, saying their comments had caused the princess distress. And then that same Insta friend posted another photo of them two in a Spanish airport in June. The campaign then putting out a statement saying that they were pleased to see her seemingly having a passport, traveling and enjoying an increasing degree of freedom. Seemingly. And they also said that since May, the campaign had been working on guarantees of her safety, had been in touch with her, and had put the campaign on hold. And then last Monday, the campaign announced that they are shutting up shop after a photo of her was posted with her cousin Marcus Asabri. Case closed, they said, with Marcus saying, "I had an emotional reunion with my cousin Latifa in Iceland. I feel blessed that I got to spend time with her. It was reassuring to see her so happy, well, and focused on her plans." The campaign adding, "The primary purpose of the Free Latifa campaign was to see Latifa free, leading the life she chooses for herself. We have clearly gone a long way towards achieving that goal over the last 3 years, with bodies such as the United Nations now monitoring and current and future well-being of Latifa." And if anybody can find the UN's press release on that, then drop a comment below. Either that was a private conversation or it's complete bullshit. And honestly, for one of the most videoed, dramatized, investigated, detailed ordeals, a conspiracy on the world stage, how is it that all we get is a tweet, a few shit photos, and a statement that tells us nothing? What the fuck? There's something we missed here, and I don't know what. It can't simply just be, oh, she took a photo with her cousin, case closed, time to close our Squarespace account. I don't think this is over is all I'm saying. Maybe Latifa had a falling out with the campaign. Maybe they got sued. I don't know. Now it sounds like I'm start like doing my own Free Latifa campaign. I'm not. I don't care that much. I'm not, I swear. Seriously. And just to top us off, remember this craziness in Washington, D.C. last year? So far, 600 people have been charged for that. Well, protesters from the Scotland Against Lockdown group have stormed Edinburgh Castle on Tuesday. They haven't. Because, well, I'll let Angelina Campbell or Jane of the family Walsh explain it.
Today we're here to restore the rule of law. Right. So that means we're going to be standing under common law. We're going to be using Article 61 in Magna Carta, which is actually the only law in effect.
Right, no worries.
It was insanity. 30 people showed up to seize the building. Wait, yeah. It was 30 people. I lied. They don't really have the building. I mean, Edinburgh Castle has 55 employed alone just for upkeep. And that doesn't include the young and limber attendants that they have there, and Amelia from the Redcoat Cafe who makes a mean hot chocolate. And I think once a cop has to ask, how many more people are you expecting? It's over. And this is why they were there.
We are taking our building back.
And from who exactly? Tourists? No.
Corrupt, evil, satanic paedophiles.
Let's get a couple of things straight here. Firstly, that law doesn't really mean anything in Scotland. The anti-lockdown protesters are claiming that Article 61 of the Magna Carta lets them ignore coronavirus lockdown laws, despite the historical document having no standing in Scottish law. Secondly, the castle that they want to seize, while yes being a symbol of Scotland, hasn't really been used for anything of substance since the Second World War, and that was as a prison. Also, it hasn't really been a seat of government for, let's say 600 years since David II. And on that point, as recent as the 15th century, King James IV and family were like, fuck this rat-ridden shithole, I'ma build something a lot nicer down the mile. And nobody has really voluntarily slept there since then. I mean, they probably should have just waited for Amelia's hot chocolate, I think. But it does cost £17 to get in, and there is a really nice gift shop there that you can get a £10 magnet at, which I'm coming to my third point here, is that it's a tourist attraction. They went to a tourist attraction, the wrong end of the Royal Mile. Don't you just hate when you go to overthrow a government because you don't want to wear a mask and the GPS compass on your phone plays up and you think you're going east to the Scottish Parliament building and you end up at a fucking castle? It's so frustrating. I mean, you just gotta... you're in the middle of an overthrow and you're like doing the figure eight with your phone. And look, let me just take this opportunity to apologise to Scotland. I really didn't want this to be my first Scottish story that I do, and I promise you that this does not represent all Scottish people. So at least it doesn't represent 30 of them. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, this is the end of that story, and that's the end of this show. So drop your comments below. I sadly probably know more about DaBaby than I do blockchain, Maria Thatill, the struggle that it is being a woman around disgusting men, and I want to hear those stories. I want to hear what you have to say. Comments below, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum.